The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest structure ever built by intelligent life. It floated in the empty space between three ancient stars, a monument of crystal and light that stretched across 50 kilometers. Inside its great hall, 12,000 species had gathered for the monthly assembly. Their forms filled the rising tiers like a living mountain of alien flesh. Metal and energy dot at the very bottom, standing on a small circle of black stone. Ambassador Thomas Gray looked up at the impossible sight above him. He was 54 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many failed negotiations. Behind him stood his small delegation of 5 humans, their formal suits looking almost comical against the grandeur surrounding them. This was humanity's 15th attempt to join the Galactic Council. The High Speaker, a being of pure golden light named Vorinth, pulsed brightly as it addressed the assembly. Its voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. The species known as human has once again requested full membership in this body. They control one star system. Their technology remains at classification level 2. Their military capabilities are. The being paused, and amusement rippled through its light. ... Insignificant. Laughter filled the chamber. It came in 1,000 different forms. Clicking sounds from insect-like creatures. Deep rumbles from beings made of living rock. High-pitched whistles from gaseous entities contained in magnetic bottles. The sound washed over Thomas like a wave of contempt. He did not react. He simply waited. The Kelvari representative rose from its seat. It was a massive creature, 8 meters tall, with blue scales and 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. I propose we deny the human petition and ban them from reapplying for 1,000 standard cycles. They waste our time with these pathetic requests. I support this proposal, announced the Mortith delegate, a spider-like being with 12 eyes that glittered with cold intelligence. More voices joined in agreement. Species that had been part of the Council for millions of years. Species that controlled hundreds of worlds. Species whose warships numbered in the tens of thousands. All of them united in their dismissal of the small, weak creatures from a tiny blue planet called Earth. Thomas Gray cleared his throat. The sound was soft, almost nothing compared to the noise of the assembly. But something about the stillness of his posture made the nearest representatives pause. One by one, the voices fell silent. 12,000 species turned their attention to the single human standing in the petitioner's circle. "Honored representatives," Thomas said. His voice was calm, measured, almost pleasant. "Before you vote, I have been instructed by the United Earth government to make an announcement." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small crystal device. It glowed faintly in his palm. Humanity formally withdraws its petition for council membership. Confusion spread through the chamber like ripples in water. This was unprecedented. In 40,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever voluntarily walked away from the council. They begged for admission. They fought wars for the privilege. They waited centuries for the chance none had ever refused. Vorinth's golden light flickered with uncertainty. "Ambassador Gray, perhaps you do not understand what you are saying. Withdrawal means isolation." "It means I understand perfectly," Thomas interrupted. The simple act of cutting off the High Speaker sent a shock through the assembly. Lesser species did not interrupt the High Speaker. Furthermore, Earth is terminating all existing agreements with Council-affiliated species. All trade contracts, all transit permissions, all diplomatic accords. Effective immediately. He crushed the crystal in his hand. Every display screen in the massive chamber suddenly changed, showing the same image. A map of known space with golden lines representing the major trade routes. "For 300 years," Thomas continued, "humanity has been patient. We followed your rules. We asked politely. We accepted your insults and your laughter. He turned slowly, his eyes moving across the tiers of alien representatives. During that time, we were watching, learning, planning. He pointed at the map. Every major trade route in the galaxy passes through one of 3 jump points. According to Council law, established 18,000 years ago, unclaimed jump points belong to the species whose territory is closest. He smiled, and there was no warmth in it. Those 3 jump points are in human space. They always have been. You simply never noticed. The Kelvari representative surged to its feet. This is absurd. Those jump points are open territory. Check your own records, Thomas replied. We did, very carefully. The law is clear. And as of this moment, those jump points are closed to all Council traffic. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. The implications hit the assembly like a physical blow. Without those 3 jump points, trade between the major galactic powers would collapse. Entire civilizations depended on resources that traveled through those routes. The Council's economy, their military supply lines, their very way of life, all of it ran through human-controlled space, and they had just laughed at humanity. They had just voted to ban them for 1,000 years. The Mortith delegates' 12 eyes went wide. You cannot do this. The economic damage alone would... Would what? Thomas asked quietly. Affect us? We have 1 star system. We are insignificant. You said so yourselves. He began walking toward the exit, his small delegation falling in behind him. We have nothing to lose. Can you say the same? Vorinth's light blazed with sudden intensity. Ambassador Gray, this is an act of war. Thomas stopped at the door. He turned back, and for the first time, the assembly saw something in his eyes that made even the oldest species feel a chill. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was the calm, patient certainty of a predator who had been waiting a very long time for this moment. No, High Speaker. This is an act of self-defense. You voted to isolate us for 1,000 years. You were planning to carve up our world among your allies. Yes, we know about that too. He shook his head slowly. We gave you every chance to treat us fairly. You chose this path. Not us. The doors began to open. When you are ready to negotiate as equals, Thomas said, you know where to find us. But I would not wait too long. The price of passage goes up every day. The doors closed behind him with a sound like a tomb ceiling shut dot in the great chamber. 12,000 species sat in stunned silence. The laughter was gone. The contempt was gone. In its place was something few of them had felt in millennia. Fear on the observation deck of the human transport ship. Thomas Gray stood looking out at the Council station as it shrank into the distance. Director Maria Santos, head of Earth's Intelligence Division, stood beside him. It is done, Thomas said quietly. No going back now. Maria nodded. The Council will respond, probably with force. The Kelvari are already mobilizing their fleet. Let them come. Thomas turned away from the window. 300 years of preparation. 300 years of building in the shadows while they laughed at us. Now they will learn what humanity is truly capable of. Back on Earth, in a command center buried deep beneath a mountain, Admiral Robert Obi watched the same star map that Thomas had shown the Council. But his version had additional details. Hidden shipyards in unexplored space. Secret colonies on distant worlds. A fleet that officially did not exist. He picked up a communication device and spoke a single word. Begin. Across the galaxy, in places the Council did not even know existed, humanity started to wake up. And the galaxy would never be the same again. 2 weeks after humanity walked out of the Galactic Council, the galaxy began to starve. The first shortages appeared on the industrial worlds of the Kelvari Empire. Their factories consumed raw materials from dozens of star systems, materials that traveled through the jump points humanity now controlled. When the supply ships stopped coming, production lines went silent. Workers who had never known want suddenly found themselves standing in lines for basic necessities. The Mordith Collective faced a different crisis. Their entire civilization ran on energy crystals mined from a distant sector. The only route to those mines passed through human space. Within days, their power grids began to fail. Cities that had burned bright for 1,000,000 years went dark, and in the halls of the Galactic Council, panic was setting in. High Speaker Vorinth convened an emergency session. Only half the usual representatives attended. Many could not make the journey without passing through the blocked routes. Those who did arrive brought desperate reports from their homeworlds. The humans must be made to see reason, declared Councillor Thrall of the Kelvari. His scales had lost their healthy blue color, turning pale with stress. We must send a diplomatic mission immediately. We tried, replied the Mordith delegate, her 12 eyes blinking rapidly. They refused to receive our ambassadors. They said, she paused, clearly struggling with the words. They said they do not negotiate with species who laugh at them. Vorinth's golden light pulsed with frustration. Then we must consider other options. Military options. The chamber fell silent. War with any species was serious. But war with the species that controlled the galaxy's economic lifelines was something else entirely. Fleet Commander Draven of the Kelvari rose to his feet. He was ancient by his species standards, a veteran of a dozen conflicts. His scarred blue scales told the story of battles won through sheer brutality. My forces are ready, he announced. Give me the order, and I will crush these humans within a standard month. They have no fleet. They have no experience. They are insects waiting to be stepped on. Vorinth considered this. How many ships can you commit? 20,000 warships from the Kelvari alone. With our allies, we can assemble 60,000 within 3 days. Draven's lips pulled back in what passed for a smile among his kind. The humans have perhaps 200 patrol vessels. This will not be a war. It will be an execution. The vote was swift. The Council authorized military action against Earth. The official justification was protection of galactic trade routes. The true purpose was something older and simpler. A powerful civilization crushing a weaker one because it had dared to stand up for itself. Commander, Draven assembled his fleet at the edge of Council space. 60,000 warships, crewed by millions of soldiers from a dozen species. It was the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. Against them stood a single species that had only discovered faster than light. Travel 3 centuries ago, not the odds seemed impossible. Captain Lisa Palmer knew something that Draven did. Not that she stood on the bridge of the patrol frigate Defiant, watching the massive alien fleet approach on her sensors. Her crew of 40 humans worked their stations with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Their parents had trained for it. Their grandparents had trained for it. 300 years of preparation, all leading to this. Commander, the alien fleet is entering the jump point zone, reported her tactical officer. Lisa nodded. Send the first warning. Her communications officer transmitted a simple message. Attention Kelvari fleet. You are entering sovereign human territory. Turn back immediately or face the consequences. Draven's response came quickly. Human vessel, you are in no position to threaten us. Stand aside or be destroyed. Lisa smiled. It was not a nervous smile. It was the smile of someone who knew exactly what was about to happen. Send the second warning, she said. Kelvari fleet, this is your final warning. Proceed at your own risk. On the Kelvari flagship, Draven laughed. His officers joined him. 60,000 ships against one small frigate. The human commander was either insane or stupid. Destroy them, Draven ordered. 100 Kelvari warships broke formation, accelerating toward the Defiant. Their weapons powered up, ready to vaporize the tiny human ship. They never got the chance. Space itself seemed to tear open. From the darkness beyond the jump point, ships emerged. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. Human ships. They poured from the void like a river of steel and fire. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and battleships that dwarfed even the largest Kelvari vessels. Ships that should not exist. Ships that the Council had no record of. Ships that humanity had been building in secret for 3 centuries. Draven's laughter died in his throat. Where ... He whispered. Where did they come from? His tactical officers were screaming numbers at him. 8,000 ships. No, 10,000. No, 15,000. The count kept climbing as more vessels emerged from hidden positions in the unexplored darkness. And then the transmission came. Not from Captain Palmer. From somewhere else. Somewhere impossible. Kelvari Fleet. This is Admiral Robert Obi of the United Earth Navy. The voice was calm, almost casual. You have entered sovereign human territory with hostile intent. You have exactly 60 seconds to begin your retreat. After that, we will consider your presence an act of war and respond accordingly. Draven stared at his tactical display. The human fleet was positioning itself in a perfect encirclement formation. They had been waiting. They had known exactly when and where his fleet would arrive. This was not a surprise. This was a trap. 50 seconds, Admiral Obi continued. I should mention that our weapons are significantly more advanced than you believed. We have had 300 years to innovate while you are busy laughing at us. I strongly recommend that you do not test our capabilities. The Kelvari commander looked at his fleet. 60,000 ships, crewed by millions of soldiers who trusted him to lead them to victory. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he barely recognized: doubt. 30 seconds. The choice is yours, Commander. Retreat with honor, or stay and watch your fleet burn. Draven thought of his homeworld. He thought of his family. He thought of the species that depended on him to protect them. And he thought of the human ambassador, standing alone in the council chamber while 12,000 species laughed at him. That human had not been afraid. Neither was this admiral. All ships, Draven said quietly, his voice heavy with shame. Reverse course. We are returning to council space. His officers stared at him in disbelief. Commander, we cannot simply. We are outmaneuvered. Draven slammed his fist against his command console. They knew we were coming. They were waiting for us. This entire operation was compromised from the beginning. He looked at the tactical display, at the thousands of human ships that had appeared from nowhere. The Council was wrong about humanity. They are not insects. They are hunters. And we almost walked into their trap. The retreat began. 60,000 ships turning away from 3 jump points that they could never take by force. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The Kelvari, the greatest military power in the Council, had been turned back without a shot fired. Humanity had revealed a hidden fleet larger than anyone imagined. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in an instant. And in her command center on Earth, Director Maria Santos watched the alien fleet retreat. Beside her, Admiral Obi allowed himself a small smile. Phase 1 complete, he said. Maria nodded. Now comes the hard part. The Council will not accept this humiliation. They will escalate. Let them. The Admiral turned to face her, his eyes hard with determination. We have been preparing for this day since our great-grandparents were children. Whatever they send at us, we will be ready. In the council chamber, Vorinth received the news of the retreat. The High Speaker's light flickered with something that might have been fear. What are these humans? It whispered to no one in particular. What have we awakened? The answer would come soon enough, and it would change the galaxy forever. The retreat of the Kelvari fleet sent shockwaves through the galaxy that no one could ignore. For the first time in recorded history, the Council's military might had failed. Species that had lived under the Council's shadow for millions of years began asking dangerous questions. If the humans could stand against the Kelvari, what else might be possible? In the Council chamber, emergency sessions ran day and night. The usual arrogance had disappeared. Representatives who had laughed at humanity now spoke in hushed, frightened tones about the threat Earth posed to galactic stability. But High Speaker Vorinth had not given up. The humans surprised us. The being of golden light announced to the reduced assembly. They will not surprise us again. We have resources they cannot imagine. We have allies they do not know about. And we have weapons that have not been used in 10,000 years. Counselor Threll of the Kelvari leaned forward. His scales had regained some of their color, but his eyes still carried the haunted look of someone who had narrowly escaped disaster. What weapons do you speak of, High Speaker? Vorinth's light pulsed slowly. During the last great war, before the Council was formed, the ancient powers created terrible things. Machines capable of destroying entire star systems. These weapons were sealed away when peace came, hidden in places only the High Speakers know. The golden light grew brighter. I have authorized the awakening of Project Extinction. A ripple of shock passed through the chamber. Even the oldest representatives looked disturbed. The extinction weapon is forbidden, whispered the Mortith delegate. The treaties are clear. No species may. The treaties apply to member species, Vorinth interrupted. Humanity is not a member. We are not using the weapon against fellow Council civilizations. We are using it against an external threat. The High Speaker's light pulsed with cold satisfaction. The humans have forced us to this. Their stubbornness will be their end. Deep in the unexplored regions of space, Ambassador Thomas Gray received this news with the calm expression he always wore. But behind that calm, his mind was racing. He stood in the command center of Station Omega, the heart of humanity's hidden network. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of every human colony, every secret shipyard, every military installation that Earth had built during 3 centuries of patient expansion. Director Maria Santos stood beside him, her face grim. The extinction weapon is real. Our intelligence confirms it. A mobile platform capable of generating gravitational pulses that can destabilize a star. Can we destroy it? Thomas asked. Unknown. The platform has shields and weapons of its own, and it's being moved toward our space as we speak. Maria pulled up a tactical projection. Based on its current course, it will reach firing range of Earth in 72 hours. Thomas studied the projection. 72 hours. 3 days to find a solution, or watch his homeworld die. What are our options? Admiral Robert Obi stepped forward. He had aged visibly since the crisis began, but his voice remained steady. We can evacuate Earth. Our colony network can absorb the population if we start immediately. We will lose your homeworld, but the species survives. And then what? Thomas shook his head. They will come for the colonies next. Running is not a solution. Then we fight. The Admiral pointed at the projection. We throw everything we have at the platform before it reaches firing range. Heavy casualties, but if we can destroy it, we cannot guarantee destruction, Maria interrupted. Our weapons may not penetrate its shields. If we fail, we lose our fleet and our planet. Silence fell over the command center. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone present. Billions of lives depended on what they chose in the next few minutes. Thomas closed his eyes. He thought of Earth. He thought of the blue oceans and green forests that he had not seen in years. He thought of the children growing up in cities that might not exist in 3 days. And he thought of something else. Something that had been nagging at his mind since the crisis began. "The Council is afraid," he said slowly. "They are more afraid of us than we realized. Otherwise, why use such an extreme weapon? Why risk everything on a device that has been forbidden for 10,000 years? Maria frowned. "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting that we are not alone in this." Thomas opened his eyes. The Council is not a single entity. It is a collection of species with competing interests. Some of them must be having second thoughts about this course of action. He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel. Not to the Council. To everyone. Every species in the galaxy. I want them all to hear what I have to say." Within minutes, humanity's transmission was broadcasting across known space. Thomas Gray's face appeared on screens in thousands of star systems, from the wealthiest core worlds to the poorest frontier colonies. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began. "I am Ambassador Thomas Gray of Earth. By now, you have heard about the events of recent weeks. You have heard how humanity withdrew from the Council after 3 centuries of insults and rejection. You have heard how we revealed the secret strength we had built while you were not watching." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Now I must tell you something else. The Galactic Council, the body that claims to represent all intelligent life, has authorized the use of the extinction weapon against Earth. In 3 days, they intend to destroy our sun, killing 8 billion human beings." His voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the words. "This is not defense. This is genocide." Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched in stunned silence. "We did not ask for this conflict," Thomas continued. "We asked only for fairness. We asked only to be treated as equals. When that was denied, we protected ourselves. We broke no laws. We harmed no one. And for this crime of self-respect, the Council has decided to murder our entire species." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "But here is what the Council does not want you to know. If they use this weapon against us, they will use it against anyone who challenges them. Today it is humanity. Tomorrow it could be your world, your children, your future." He shook his head slowly. The Council was supposed to protect the galaxy. Instead, it has become the galaxy's greatest threat. On the Navori homeworld, a water planet orbiting a gentle yellow star, Elder Kalish watched the human transmission with growing unease. The Navori were an aquatic species, peaceful traders who had never involved themselves in military matters. But they had also been studying humanity for decades. They knew things that other species did not. "He speaks the truth," Kalish said to the other elders, gathered in the deep council chamber. "Humanity does not bluff. If the weapon is used, they will find a way to strike back. And the resulting war will destroy everything we have built." "What would you have us do?" asked Elder Sorinth. "Defy the Council? We have no military. We have no power. We have our ships," Kalish replied. "We have our trade networks. And we have our voice." The old Navori's gills fluttered with determination. If enough species speak against this madness, the Council will have to listen. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. On 100 worlds, leaders who had always followed the Council began to question. Doubt spread like ripples in water dot, and in the darkness of space, the extinction weapon continued its slow, terrible approach toward the small blue planet called Earth. 70 hours remained. Back on Station Omega, Maria Santos approached Thomas with unexpected news. "Ambassador, we are receiving communications from multiple species." The Navori, the Thren, the Valathi, others. They want to know what they can do to help. Thomas allowed himself a small smile. The first genuine smile since the crisis began. "Tell them to make their voices heard," he said. "The Council thinks this is between them and humanity. Let us show them that they are wrong." The galaxy was choosing sides. And the Council was about to discover just how many of its members disagreed with genocide. But would it be enough? The extinction weapon drew closer with every passing hour, and those who controlled it had no intention of backing down. The fate of Earth hung in the balance. 40-8 hours remained before the extinction weapon reached Earth. Across the galaxy, the response to Ambassador Thomas Gray's broadcast was growing beyond anything the Council had anticipated. The Navori were the first to act. Their trade fleet, normally scattered across hundreds of star systems, began gathering at a single point in neutral space. 3,000 ships carrying no weapons, but carrying something far more dangerous: a message. They would place themselves between the weapon and Earth. If the Council wanted to destroy humanity, they would have to kill the Navori first. The Thren Collective followed within hours. They were an insectoid species, builders of the most advanced communication networks in the galaxy. They announced that any Council transmission ordering the weapon's activation would not pass through their relay stations. The Council would have to find another way to send the command. Then came the Valathi, the Amrani, the silent keepers of the deep libraries, and dozens of other species that had never defied the Council in their long histories. One by one, they announced their opposition to the use of the extinction weapon. What began as isolated protests became a movement, and that movement grew stronger with every passing hour. High Speaker Vorinth watched these developments with growing fury. The golden light that usually emanated calmly from its form now flickered with unstable intensity. "Traitors," it hissed. "After everything the Council has done for them, they side with the humans?" Councillor Thrall shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "High Speaker, perhaps we should reconsider. If we use the weapon now, while so many species are watching, we will not be dictated to by lesser civilizations." Vorinth's light blazed with sudden intensity, forcing nearby representatives to shield their eyes. "The extinction weapon will proceed as planned, and when Earth is ash, these traitors will remember their place." But even as Vorinth spoke, something unexpected was happening aboard the extinction weapon itself. Weapons Master Bravik had served the Council for 200 years. He was a Kelvari, bred and trained for war, loyal to his commanders without question. When he received the assignment to crew the extinction weapon, he had accepted it with pride. He would be the one to end the human threat. History would remember his name. Now he stood in the weapon's core chamber, staring at the massive energy collectors that would soon destroy a star. And for the first time in his long life, he felt doubt. He had seen the human transmission. He had watched Ambassador Gray speak of genocide, of murdered children, of a weapon that could be turned against anyone who displeased the Council. The words had disturbed him in ways he could not explain. And then came the images. Somehow the humans had obtained footage from inside the Council chamber. They broadcast it across the galaxy, showing Vorinth authorizing the weapon, showing the representatives laughing at the idea of 8 billion deaths. The High Speaker's voice, cold and contemptuous, echoed through the transmission. "Let them burn. Let it be a lesson to any species that dares to challenge our authority." Bravik had watched that footage in his quarters, alone, and something inside him had broken. He thought of his own homeworld. He thought of the Kelvari children who played in the shallow waters of the southern seas. He thought of how easily those children could become the next targets if the Kelvari ever displeased the Council. The weapon was not justice. It was a threat. A reminder that the Council would tolerate no defiance from anyone. When the secure transmission reached him 3 hours later, He was already waiting for it. Weapons Master Bravik. The face on his screen was human. Captain Lisa Palmer, the same officer who had stood alone against the Kelvari fleet. We know you have doubts. We know you have seen what the Council truly is. Bravik's scales rippled with tension. Speaking to the enemy was treason. Helping them was death. What do you want? He asked quietly. We want to give you a choice, Palmer replied. Help us disable the weapon, and you will be remembered as the person who prevented the greatest crime in galactic history. Refuse, and we will be forced to attack the platform directly. Many of your crew will die. Many of ours will die. And the outcome will be uncertain. Bravik closed his eyes. The training of 2 centuries told him to refuse. The instincts of a lifetime told him to remain loyal. But something deeper, something he had buried for too long, told him something else. What do you need me to do? He asked. The plan was simple but dangerous. The extinction weapons shields were controlled from a single chamber deep within the platform. If Bravik could disable those shields for just 30 seconds, a human strike team could infiltrate the weapon and reach the core before anyone could stop them. 20 hours remained. On Station Omega, Admiral Robert Obi assembled his best soldiers. 50 men and women who had trained their entire lives for missions that seemed impossible. They gathered in the briefing room with the quiet calm of people who knew they might not come back. Captain Palmer would lead them. She had faced the Kelvari fleet without flinching. She had stared down 60,000 ships and smiled. If anyone could succeed in this mission, it was her. The target is the weapon's primary energy core, she explained, pointing at a holographic diagram of the massive platform. If we can destabilize the core, the resulting cascade will destroy the weapon without detonating it. Earth will be safe. A young soldier raised his hand. Captain, what about extraction? How do we get out after the core is destabilized? Palmer met his eyes steadily. That part of the plan is still being developed. Everyone in the room understood what that meant. This was likely a one-way mission. Any questions? Palmer asked. Silence. Good. We launch in 2 hours. Get some rest. Write letters to your families. Make peace with whatever you believe in. She looked around the room at the 50 faces that trusted her with their lives. What we do today will be remembered for as long as humans exist. Make it count. At the same moment, in the council chamber, something unexpected happened. The Navori elder Kalish appeared on the main display screen, flanked by representatives of 40 other species. They had formed their own assembly, a coalition of those who opposed the extinction weapon. High Speaker Vorinth, Kalish said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. We are the voice of those the Council has ignored. We demand an immediate halt to the extinction weapon and negotiations with humanity. Refuse, and we will withdraw from the Council permanently. All of us. Vorinth's light flickered with barely contained rage. You dare to threaten us? You, who have no military, no power, no, we have something greater than military power, Kalish interrupted. We have legitimacy. The Council was created to protect all species, not to slaughter those who displease its leaders. If you proceed with this genocide, you will prove that the Council itself is the enemy, and you will find yourselves very alone in a very large galaxy. The transmission ended in the silence that followed. Representatives began to leave their seats. One by one, they walked out of the chamber. All eyes that had supported the Council for millennia turned their backs on Vorinth without a word. Within an hour, half the seats in the Great Assembly were empty, and in the darkness of space, the extinction weapon drew closer to Earth. 18 hours remained. Inside the weapon, Bravik prepared to betray everything he had ever believed in. Outside the weapon, Captain Palmer and her team prepared to die. The fate of billions rested on a single Moment of courage from two people who had every reason to hate each other. But war makes strange allies. And sometimes the galaxy changes in ways that no one expects. 6 hours remained before the extinction weapon reached firing range of Earth's sun. Captain Lisa Palmer and her team of 50 soldiers sat in the cargo hold of a small, unmarked transport ship, waiting for the signal that would determine whether they lived or died. The transport had no weapons, no shields, nothing that would identify it as human. It was disguised as a cargo vessel from a neutral species, one of thousands that traveled through this region of space every day. The Council would have no reason to stop it, unless the plan failed, unless Bravik betrayed them, unless any of 100 things went wrong. Palmer checked her weapon for the 10th time. Around her, her soldiers did the same. Nobody spoke. There was nothing left to say. 3 hours later, the transport reached its position. Hidden in the shadow of a small moon, they waited for Bravik's signal. Minutes passed like years. Then the message came. A single word, now. The transport accelerated toward the extinction weapon at maximum speed. On the weapon's bridge, alarms began to sound. Security officers moved to intercept the approaching vessel. But in the shield control chamber, Bravik was already working. His claws moved across the console with practiced speed, entering codes that only a senior weapons master would know. Outside his door, guards pounded on the metal, demanding to know what he was doing. "For my children," Bravik whispered. "For everyone's children." He entered the final command. The extinction weapon's shields flickered and died. Palmer's transport slammed into the weapon's hull at full speed. The impact was designed, calculated, controlled. The ship tore through the outer plating and came to rest in a maintenance corridor, deep within the massive structure. The doors blew open. 50 human soldiers poured out into the darkness, weapons raised, moving with the silent efficiency of their training. They had 30 seconds before the shields came back online. 30 seconds before the weapon's internal defenses activated. 30 seconds to reach the core. Palmer led from the front, as she always did. Her team split into 3 groups, each taking a different route toward the center of the weapon. If one group failed, the others might succeed. The first resistance came at the 20-second mark. Kelvari soldiers, loyal to the Council, opened fire from a defensive position ahead. 3 humans fell before the others could take cover. "Keep moving," Palmer shouted. "We stop, we die." They pushed forward, trading fire with the defenders. More soldiers fell on both sides. The corridor filled with smoke and screaming. At the 15-second mark, Palmer's group broke through. They reached the core chamber just as the shields came back online, sealing them inside with no way out. It did not matter. They were where they needed to be. The extinction weapons core was a sphere of contained chaos, gravitational forces so powerful they could tear a star apart. It hung in the center of the massive chamber, pulsing with energy that made Palmer's bones ache. "Plant the charges," she ordered. "We have 3 minutes before they cut through the doors." Her surviving soldiers moved quickly, placing explosives at the points their engineers had identified. 1 charge here, 1 there. A precise pattern designed to create a cascade reaction that would destroy the weapon from within. Behind them, the sound of cutting torches echoed through the sealed doors. The Kelvari were coming. 2 minutes. Palmer watched her people work. 17 of them had made it this far. 17 out of 50. The others had bought this moment with their lives. She would not waste their sacrifice. "Charges set," reported her demolitions expert. "Ready to detonate on your command." Palmer nodded. She looked at the sealed doors, at the cutting torches that were slowly burning through the metal. She looked at her soldiers, the best humanity had to offer, who had followed her into certain death without hesitation. "It has been an honor," she said quietly. They understood. There would be no extraction. When the charges detonated, everyone in this chamber would die. But the weapon would be destroyed. Earth would be safe. And the galaxy would see that humans did not surrender, did not run, did not accept threats from anyone. 1 minute, the doors began to give way. Through the gaps, Palmer could see cavalry soldiers waiting to storm the chamber. "Detonate," she ordered. The world turned white. On Earth, 8 billion people looked up at the sky. They had been told to prepare for the worst. They had been told that their son might die today, that everything they knew might end in fire. Instead, they saw a new star appear in the heavens. A brief flash of light, there and gone, marking the death of the weapon that had threatened them all. The extinction weapon was gone. In the council chamber, High Speaker Vorinth received the news in silence. The golden light that defined its form grew dim, flickering with something that might have been despair. Half the council had abandoned them. The weapon was destroyed. The humans had won. For the first time in 10,000 years, Vorinth did not know what to do. Ambassador Thomas Gray's face appeared on the main display screen. He looked tired but calm, the same unshakable calm that had carried him through every crisis. "High Speaker," he said, "we have destroyed your weapon. We have exposed your intentions. And half the galaxy now stands against you." He paused, letting the words sink in. "This is over. You have lost. The only question now is how this ends." Vorinth's light flickered weakly. "What do you want?" "What we have always wanted. Fairness, equality, a seat at the table where decisions are made." Thomas leaned forward. "The old council is finished. Too many species have seen its true nature to trust it again. But something new can be built in its place. Something better. And if we refuse?" Thomas shook his head slowly. "You will not refuse. You have nothing left. No weapon, no allies, no legitimacy. The galaxy has moved on, High Speaker. You can move with it, or you can be left behind." Silence filled the chamber. The remaining council members, those few who had stayed loyal to Vorinth, exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, the High Speaker's light steadied. "Very well, Ambassador. We will negotiate." The new assembly met 3 months later in a different place, a station built jointly by humanity and the species that had stood with them during the crisis. They called it the Galactic Accord, and its founding principles were simple: equal representation, transparent governance, and the revolutionary idea that every species had value regardless of their size or power. Thomas Gray stood at the center of the new assembly hall, not as a petitioner this time, as a founder. 300 years ago, he told the gathered representatives, humanity was told we did not matter. We were mocked for our weakness. We were dismissed for our youth. We were told to know our place. He looked around the chamber at hundreds of species, many of whom had once laughed at his kind. We did not accept that judgment. We built our strength in silence. We waited for the right moment. And when that moment came, we stood our ground. He paused. But we did not stand alone. The Navori stood with us. The Thren stood with us. 40 species defied the council to protect a people they barely knew. That is the foundation of what we build today. In the front row, Elder Kalash of the Navori nodded with approval. Beside him, representatives from dozens of worlds listened with hope in their eyes. The old council ruled through fear, Thomas continued. The accord will lead through trust. We will disagree. We will argue. We will struggle to find common ground. But we will do so as equals. And we will never, ever threaten genocide against those who challenge our authority. The applause that followed was not unanimous. Some still doubted. Some still feared. But it was a beginning. On Earth, the celebrations lasted for days. In the streets of cities that had nearly died, people danced and sang and wept with relief. Children who had almost never had a future played in parks, under clear blue skies, and in a quiet office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Thomas Gray received a message from Station Omega. Admiral Obi's face appeared on the screen. "It is done," Thomas said. "We won." The Admiral nodded slowly. "At a cost?" Thomas thought of Captain Palmer and her soldiers, who had given everything so that others might live. 50 people who would never come home. "Yes," he agreed. "At a cost, but a cost worth paying. A cost that will never be forgotten." He turned to look out the window at the ocean stretching to the horizon. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between the stars, humanity's future was waiting to be built. They had withdrawn from the Council's talks. They had faced the galaxy's judgment. They had refused to accept their assigned place in the universe. And they had won, not through destruction, not through conquest, but through courage, patience, and the simple refusal to be treated as less than they were. The Galactic Council had made a mistake when they laughed at humanity. They would never make that mistake again.